Hi, I'm Jesse. I'm glad to be here. Apologies for a little delay. So I'm going to run through kind of the presentation, and just in the interest of time, I'll leave a couple of minutes at the end for the chat. So if I don't get to your questions straight away, just bear with me. So today's session is about the integration between Power Apps and Power BI. Also going to be using Power Automate as well. So yeah, I'm Jesse, a business applications MVP. I have my own YouTube channel called Jesse's Power Channel, and I'm a Power Apps consultant at Avanade. But enough about me, let's get into it. So there's a couple of references here, so I'm not going to really run through these, but if anything I've kind of spoken through today, you want a little bit more kind of insight on, then you can have a look at these tiles, well, these links. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at how to use the Power Apps visual within Power BI. And within that, I'm going to have a look at the differences if your Power BI report is in import mode and if your Power BI report is in direct query mode, because they're slightly different in the way that we approach them and what we can do kind of beyond that. The second bit here is how can we then refresh that Power BI report using Power Apps, so from Power Apps, and then also using Flow as well. So there are actually kind of two methods of doing this. And the third one here is now going back the other way. So you've had a look at Power Apps within Power BI. We're going to look at Power Automate and refreshing data sets. And the third one here is the use of a Power BI tile within Power Apps. So first I wanted to kind of detail the difference between direct query and import query, because that forms the start of my presentation. So the import query is when we're actually taking essentially almost like a copy of that data into our report itself, which means every time you refresh that data, you're importing the full data set again. So what you'll find is if you save your Power BI report with an import query enabled, the file size of your Power BI report will be much bigger. Whereas the direct query mode, you're not importing the entire data set into your report itself, you're directly connected. So that means as soon as a change gets made when you're in the web, it will just change immediately. So you don't have to wait for a refresh. Now, let's start with import. No, let's start with direct query. Hello. So I've got this report here. I'm first going to flash up what my data set here. So it's a SQL table. It's got various kind of columns, and the theme today, as you would have guessed from the PowerPoint deck, is superheroes. So we have a bunch of superheroes here, which I picked up from a website called Kaggle, I think, which has loads of different data sets on there. And essentially you've got name, gender, eye color, race, hair color, height, publisher. At the moment, just make sure I've still got an active connection to this database. I do, which is good. I have 209 rows in here. There's actually a bunch of test data at the bottom, and we'll be adding some to that as well. You can catch that. So yeah, on my screen here, we have a very simple report. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete this little Power App here because we're going to build it from scratch. I don't actually know what the kind of ability of everyone on the call is, but I'm going to make sure I explain everything. So sorry if I'm going over ground that you already know. But this is a Power BI report. Very simple. I've got a table here. I've dragged in some fields. I've got some tiles up here. A tile visual. I can't remember the name of this visual actually. It's called the tree map. And I've got a simple bar chart here. And there's 209 records, which is great because that matches what I have in my database. Now, Power Apps, the visual actually comes in the desktop included. So you have Power Apps, Power BI. So I'm going to click that. And as soon as I do, what it will first ask me to do is put in some data fields in there for Power Apps data. And that basically starts connecting this visual tile to the data here. As soon as I click that, it will freeze. It shouldn't actually freeze. Hopefully it's going to come back. If not, Blue Peter standards, I've got something. Okay, let's kill that. Lots of techie faults. Let's try that again. So I do want the same file because that's my live query file. It's been recovered. Let's just take this one. So essentially, like as that's opening, what's going to happen is it will then give you the option to add that Power App and ask you whether you want to create from new or whether you want to select a Power App that has already been created. Now, as long as we have time, I am going to attempt to build it from scratch. So we'll go straight for that tile. Cool. So back. I'm going to put a tile back in, just as I did. Drag a field into there. Yes, I can sign in. Oh, yeah, there you go. Luckily, we're here now. So yeah, choose app or create new. I'm actually going to create new. Okay, so the reason I want to do that, yes, open browser. Somehow zoomed out to the point where I can't actually click on the next bit. Did that work? I think it did. All that happened there, weirdly, is that it basically zoomed out to the point where there was actually a button that said go, and it just didn't show me that. But that's fine. I just clicked enter and it went through. So yeah, I've got a blank canvas that's appeared here. So a canvas app has appeared. What I'll do is first I'm going to delete what's appeared. And you'll see here at the left-hand side, I've got this Power BI integration that's appeared. Now, from here, I am going to connect in my data source, which I already have connected before. So if I go to SQL Server, I'll be able to get my data source, which is this heroes info, and connect it in. Okay. And then this Power BI integration basically means that as soon as I actually start saving data into my data set, I can actually refresh that data set as well. So I'll show you how to do that. First of all, we're going to build a really simple app. Hopefully it won't take me more than a few minutes. So I'm going to give it a very quick title, like so. Just maybe kind of center that. And then I'm going to insert a very simple, what am I looking for here? Oh. A form. My mind's gone blank. Oh. This is what happens when, what are we doing? Where's my simple form gone? Has it gone? Ah, okay. That was weird. So I'm used to just seeing everything over here. Now I've probably added in like mixed reality and AI builder, which is what caused the forms to go over here. So yeah, edit form, put that over here. And essentially I'm going to connect it to that data source. I'm going to add a few fields. So let's go for height, name, let's go for publisher or something like that. Cool. And then I'm going to put a button because as soon as I come onto this form, I just want to submit the form. Essentially, or when I click on this button even. Okay, it makes it a little bit prettier. Let us. Okay, I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to put a picture in though to make it a little bit prettier. Let's get an image. Oops. Like this. Get a superhero on here.
It's not unusual for consultants to set up companies as part, so that they can fulfill a program.
Apologies. Carry on.
It's okay. Cool. Things have moved around a little bit here. I'm just looking for. It's here. Oh my god. These little arrows. Little things. Just like... Right. Anyway, just look for the arrow. Look for the arrows, basically. It's because I've added too many things. That's what's happened. Right. App's done. Okay, so we've got an app now. Very simple app. I mean, it would have taken me less time if I knew what all the other arrows were. But you see here, when I play this, it has no items here. So last few steps just to get this app working is on the on visible of this property. I think this is probably called form 1. Yep. So I'm just going to say that as soon as the app starts up, let's do a new form of form 1. And let's go for submit form. Okay, and now you see here, this has appeared. So if I type in Power BI integration, I did not bring in this connector. This connector just came in. I can click on Power BI integration.refresh. And that means as soon as I submit some data, so I need to run my on start in order for it to pick up a new form here. If I put in some data and then submit the form, it's actually going to refresh the underlying data set in my Power BI report. So it's basically done that connection for me. So let's just put in some data, just make sure that it's working. Let's give it something a bit meaningful. Give it a height of 100. Let's call it J. Let's go 1902, so we know it's today. We'll call it J1902. Just give it a publisher name, and I'll submit that. And if I go back to my database, you'll see that I have 210 records, and it's there. Now I'm going to save and publish this. And let's go for that. So as soon as that's saved, as soon as I open up my Power BI report again, port should appear. It's there now. Just give that a second. So you see it's built that report already. Now I'm going to publish this. So let's have a look at it in the web now. And yeah, we'll put this in my workspace. That'll be okay. So I'll come over to my workspace. Just want to make sure that's, yep, so that's gone in. And I come over to here, look at my workspace, find my report. So you can see here that it was refreshed just about now. So I know it's the right one. Click on that. And my report is here and my newly developed app is here with 10 records. So let's go ahead and I put a new one in there. So there is sometimes a little bit of a lag when it refreshes this data set. So it may just take a few seconds. So I'm putting in another one here, just made up some stuff. And now, oh, well, it didn't take any time there, so that's good. So yeah, now we're on 211 records. So this is great. Superheroes are fun and all, but how can we actually relate this back to the work environment? Places I've seen this kind of work really well is quite often you give your users in your organization a report, but you don't let them interact with it. So although you might not want them to actually change the data set itself, you might want them to add actions. So I find that quite useful. So you might want to put a Power App on your Power BI report to say, let them create an action or have some commentary or something that goes somewhere else so that you can track it. So yeah, this is really useful. As I said in the beginning, we're not always going to be in live query. So just make sure that nothing crashes. I'm going to stick to one file here. I've got an import file now. So this time I'm going to delete it again. So we're always going to start from scratch in the actual integration elements. And this time I'm going to drag a field in, but I'll choose an app. Okay, and in the interest of time, I probably pick one that I made before. Oh no. It's deciding to freeze again. Oh, I got it back in a minute last time, so I'm sure we can. Hopefully it doesn't like it the first time. Okay, I'm going to kill it because I think there's just something wrong with the files that were open for some reason.
I think Chuck was having some problems earlier with Power BI, so maybe it's having a bad day.
Yeah. Luckily, though, it got back fairly quickly, so I'm pretty sure this one will be fine as well. It's just having a wobble. I'm definitely a fan of just close it and open it again if anything goes wrong. I'm confident it will work. Same thing happened before. So no, I don't want these files. Oh, I need to sign in again. Cool. So fingers crossed. So close that down. Gonna this time. So instead of choosing a new Power Apps, I'm gonna say choose an app, and let us, in the interest of time, go for one that's pretty much done, which is just gonna go for this one here. Yeah, let's go for 1502. So that was done a few days ago, but it just speeds up some of the things that I was probably going to do from scratch, but that's okay. So yeah, it tells me that I can either skip now or go to Power App Studio. I'm actually going to say go to Power App Studio because I want to have a look at it, and it's open here. So it's the same thing. I've probably made it a tiny bit kind of jazzier, but it's pretty much the same thing that we had. The difference here is that we've got two buttons at the bottom. So I'm just going to talk through the second bit. So with the import query, you can't just do refresh Power BI and it won't just refresh the data set like that. It's not as straightforward, but you can. There are two ways that you can do it. So with import, you do need to tell it to refresh. So what we can do for that is first, we can bring in a Power BI connector. So I did that in the same way that I brought in the SQL connector. So I click add and then type in Power BI, and then it will bring back the Power BI connector. Now, once that comes through, I have this very similar formula. And if I was in Chuck's call earlier this week, he may have shown this one because I was in a call. I saw his session title, so I guess he may have shown you this one, which is the Power BI refresh dataset. Now, what this requires, it will show me the hint text. Yep, there is the group ID and the dataset ID. Now, this is being done after I submit the form. In order to find that group ID and dataset ID, this is really important because I remember when I was first figuring all of this out, it took me a while to realize something very, very basic. Why is everything so zoomed in? Let's go out of it. There you go. You have to go to the actual data set on the left-hand side. So not the report, not any workbooks or anything, the data set itself. So that's really important. As soon as I click on that, I've got this groups, this piece of text here, and this piece of text here, which is the data set. So I basically manually just copy and paste that over here. Now that's one way I could do it. So I could fill everything out, click on the submit form, and we're done. There is another way though, which I kind of prefer because who wants to be copying and pasting a piece of text? I think it works, but there's another way. So we can use Power Automate instead. So I probably should have had my flow open. It's all right. So I'm going to go over to Power Automate, and let's create this one from scratch because this doesn't take too long. So I'm going to create a new flow, and I'm going to go automated cloud flow. Let's call it 1902 flow. Triggered. I want it from Power Apps. An instant flow. Yep, it's an instant flow. Easy mistake to make. So I'm building an instant flow. Go for Power Apps as my trigger. 1902 and then create. And you see here, this is basically saying that as soon as I click this somehow in my Power App, so I'm going to show you how to attach that, it's going to do subsequent steps in this flow. So my new step from here is basically type in Power BI, and there's essentially this refresh data set. So I'm going to click on that one, and it asks me for the workspace. And this is great because it's all UI driven now. I'm not clicking and copying things anymore. So I'm going to go for the superhero workspace because that's where I put my imported Power BI report. And the superheroes Power BI report here. So let's save that. Okay, so now over in my app, and we are going to use this one here. So it's just the one I made a couple of days ago in the interest of time. And what we'll do is, so this is, again, maybe a bit of a niggle that I always do, is in order to attach the Power Automate to your app, you need to attach it to something. Now, if I were to attach it to this button, which which has a version of that connector here, it would overwrite the formula. So what I usually do, and I find that it works for me, is I'll just insert a button. I'll click on action, click on Power Automate, and then that flow will appear, so 1902. I'll let that 1902 flow get attached. So it doesn't usually take too long. So yep, all good. And then it asks me for any parameters. For this one, I don't need any. So all I'm going to do is copy that, get rid of the button because I don't need that button anymore. And I'm going to submit using the flow instead. Okay, let's save and publish that, and let's see that in action in our report server. Okay, just give that a second to make sure. So yeah, this is the box that should have appeared later, which before even, which completely went away. So yeah, that will update itself unless it's doing it already. I'm gonna publish that just to make sure that's refreshed. Actually, yeah, it's all published. Go over here, and I'm gonna publish this. I'm gonna go to Superhero Workspace this time. And I had a data set in there already, as I'd published this before, so I'm just replacing that one. So let's just give that a second. Cool, awesome. I'll keep it there just in case we need it. And then back over here, I have my imported. Oh, I didn't actually refresh it in a while, so this will be interesting. So there are 200 records here, and that's because this particular report has not been refreshed in a while. But of course, once we submit this form, it will refresh because that's what we're doing right in the background. So one of the things that you always need to check beforehand, so I want to show you that before, is as soon as you do publish a report, you need to check your scheduled refresh and you need to check your data source credentials. So I'm all good because I'm all signed in, which is fine. But if you are connected to something on your computer or something like that, it's not going to refresh in the background. Everything needs to be in the cloud for it to do that. So back to my import, we're going to test out both of these buttons here. So each time it should basically refresh, and that will the first time come up to the true number as it wasn't refreshed in a while, and the second time it will just be one more than that. So let's go, and you see there are a few different fields here just because I added a few when I did it. So let's go submit form using the connector, right? Because that was our first one. Now let's go publisher. Just going to copy the same thing. Let's submit that. Now for this one, it's not going to do it immediately. So the browser isn't going to just jump up to 201. You need to refresh the browser. So first thing I'll do is I'll just refresh. And hopefully this should pick up. And it has, which is great. So that's on 212 now. I'm going to try the other one as well. So we'll do submit using flow. Let's go random numbers and go submit using flow. And then let's try that again. So same thing, but this time we're firing off a flow. And again, just like using the connector, you need to refresh the browser. That should be on 213. The great thing is you can see these refreshes actually happening. So if you go into data sets and then go into the scheduled refresh, did I just try and rename that? Scheduled refresh, you go into the refresh history and you can see here at 14:44:25, which was about 20 seconds ago, 40 seconds ago, there was a refresh which happened, and also at 14:44:58. About a couple of seconds ago, there was a completed refresh as well. So that's one way in which you can debug if anything goes wrong. Second place, because we're in a flow, we can go to our flow here and we can have a look at the run history. So just to let you know how you get to that, you go to my flows and then you click on the flow that we were using, which is that 1902, go to the run history, and we can see a minute ago it succeeded. Okay, so a good place to see where to debug. I'm conscious I'm slowly running out of time, so I'm going to try and do the next bit a little bit quicker. So just a few points. Power Apps, that the app can be added in the desktop or in the service. You could do it in the service as well. Power BI integration basically sends data from Power BI to Power Apps. Power BI integration.refresh, so that refresh is only for direct query, essentially. This is the Power BI connector. So there's a few resources there, so that's when we actually put it into the app. This is the flow, so we've just gone through that. And now tiles. Okay, so quickly can I do this? So when we have, going back the other way now, so going from Power BI to Power Apps, first of all, we need a dashboard tile. That's really important. So dashboard tiles are what can come over to us. Okay, so what you do is you take a tile. So this is a tile within a report, and I'm going to pin it. I'm going to go for a new dashboard. I'm probably going to do Blue Peter again and go with what I've done before. But just for you create a new dashboard, and I'm going to stick with this 1902 so I don't get confused. Pin that, and then it's going to let me go to the dashboard, and then I've got my pinned visual here. Now, one of the first things to note is, because I've fallen into this trap, is for some weird reason, if you don't have a subtitle, and sometimes I literally just put a dash or something just to get to work, it won't let the tile come into Power Apps. So I did some digging, and it seems like a valid thing for some reason. Just needs a subtitle. So just call it subtitle or something like that. Now, over in Power Apps, I am going to use the one I created before. Another niggle is that when you do open up Power Apps and then you've just made a tile, it doesn't kind of do that synchronization straight away. So if I was doing this live, what I would have done is basically just close down my app and then just reopened it again. It just is a weird niggle. So, however, what I will do is I'll quickly create a new screen and show how we get that tile in. So we go to charts, go to Power BI tile, very UI driven. Over here, choose a workspace, click on the workspace, superhero. I'm going to go for the one I created earlier. Actually, having said that, it has appeared straight away. So maybe I just wasn't being patient enough. Yeah, number of superheroes. We'll go for this one. So similar tile, and it's here. That's step one. That's great. We can put all these tiles in here. A couple of things to note, which I will quickly cover on a slide. Power Apps isn't very performant if you have billions of these tiles on a page. As a rule of thumb, the documentation says you should only have about 3. Something to note. Something also to note is if you share the security or the access to the Power BI report, you need to share it to the Power App as well. You can't just do one and assume that it will work for the other. So access needs to be granted for both. Last little bit I'm going to cover here before I finish off on some slides is what we can do, which is pretty cool, is there's a tile URL property of this chart. And basically, before I clicked on it, this is what the tile URL was, because that was what was as default. So if I click on this one, which I did nothing to, that's basically the URL of the tile. The bit I added, however, was this bit here, over here. And you can have a look at this, but it's also in the documentation. It explains it really well. You can filter based on something in on your canvas. Now, in order to filter, a couple of caveats. We need to filter based on a database name. This database name can have no spaces. So when you are designing and looking at the table, when I say database name, actually, I mean the name of the table in the report. So it just needs to have no spaces. It can only filter by textual columns. So if you try and filter by number and that kind of thing, it's not going to work. Publisher for me is a text column. And then I'm basically saying equals, and that's part of the formula, something on my page, which is drop down one.selectedtext.value, which is this drop down. So what that means is the URL of this tile, I want it to change based on what's chosen here. So if we see that in action, if I then pick NBC Heroes, you'll see that there are 3 males here and 1 female. If I go to DC Comics, there are 48 males and 16 females. Again, superheroes are great, but how can we actually use this? Kind of come back to that example I said about kind of actions and things. You might have a very usable Power App, but actually you just want to show a little bit of data, but you want that data to be filtered based on who's logged in. So maybe you want a top level sales figure for your region, but you want that to be filtered by the region that you're in. This is a great way of doing it. You don't even have to show the drop down. You could hide it. You could have it as a variable and therefore bring it in. Okay. I'm going to leave a couple of minutes for questions, so I'll quickly see what else I need to talk about here. That's pretty much it for the kind of demo aspects at a high level. So yeah, only dashboard tiles can be shared for the Power BI tile in Power Apps. Ensure the Power BI tile is also shared with the user. So use both. Column names must have no spaces. I don't think I mentioned that one actually. So yeah, ensure that column names, if they have spaces, not going to work. Only text fields and only 3 tiles loaded at a time. Last point on security. So I already mentioned this as well. Ensure that the Power Apps is shared with the user. Ensure Power BI is shared with the user. And very quickly to touch on that last bit is be careful about creating apps within your default environment, because you are exposing that app to other people and the ability to reuse that connection. So yeah, when we do integrate across the platform, we also need to think about the kind of security aspects of that as well. So I want to pause there because I want to make sure because I haven't been looking at questions. If I stop sharing my screen, are there any questions I can answer?
Yeah, Jesse, there was one about licensing. So
yeah.
Let's see. Christine asked, does this need a BI developer license or can it be done with an E3? To which Charles has put an answer, but he said you may have some other opinions.
I'm going to think licensing always very much confuses me. So if you're using a premium connector, you can't just get away with using E3, right? So I think the Power BI connector that I used in Flow may be a premium connector. I'm just checking that actually in the background. Yes, it's well, actually no, it's not. Oh, it is.
I'll read you.
Okay, that's great. It's standard. Yeah.
So Charles said, solution or to get started with the development, you can do this with the local workspace in Power BI and the developer license in Power Apps. But to share the solution, you will need licenses for both Power Apps and Power BI. Christine said it's not helped by her trying to link to SharePoint lists. Fernando says it's going to take him 3 days to replicate what he's done in 30 minutes.
I think you could do this in a SharePoint list. I'm pretty sure, because you're connecting to that as a source. We're not going to be able to use the UI. No, actually, I don't see why you couldn't use this in a SharePoint list.
And then just general appreciation for the video and saying that it's a great session. Thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.